Kendry Turio. I mean,
Yeah.
is there more to say at this point?
Yeah. He's the best pitcher, guys. Like, I mean, this guy is a stud. He's striking out more in Quad Cities than he did in Columbia. I mean, he had a good showing in the Futures game. Yeah. If you're not saying he's the number one prospect right now, like, you're like sniffing glue or something right now.
Alrighty, we are here with another episode of the Royals Pipeline with KC Sports Network. I'm Jared. That's Kev. We are back for a mid-season episode here. Kev, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I mean, it's got the draft, all the draft signees finally done. Royals aren't playing half bad baseball, so I mean, considering how the year's been, it's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, no, I mean it's been a good year. Not a good year overall for the Royals, but a good couple months at least here. So, and then we had the draft, right? We're excited about this draft class that's coming in. We had Brian Bridges on to kind of recap the draft, but we wanted to give our initial thoughts on kind of what we thought of the overall draft class. So, as everyone knows, Zion Rose was the first rounder. That was kind of fans didn't quite enjoy that. They wanted a Drew Burress or an Eric Booth Jr. They had 19 signees, 3 undrafted free agent signees. Hudson Devon, who was selected in the 19th round, did not sign. What are your overall thoughts, though, on this class? Now we have the final picture.
I mean, I like it. I mean, I think it's a good mix of prep and college, which you want to see in any draft. I know that some were disappointed with Hudson Devon not signing, but I think, to be honest, like, I think that's just kind of the landscape of what we're dealing with NIL. I mean, we saw picks like the second round pick for the Guardians not get signed. We saw the Rays not sign their third round pick. We saw the Brewers not sign their fifth round pick. And those are good organizations. Those are organizations that if you said, hey, who are some of the best organizations when it comes to the draft and developing talent, I mean, you'd say those 3. So, the Royals weren't an exception to this. The good thing is it was a 19th rounder, not a second or third rounder that they didn't sign. So, and then, you got some undrafted free agents. And I think some of those undrafted free agents were pretty intriguing. I know Ben North is a guy that I was kind of looking at from Creighton University. A little bit of an older guy, but, and, he does strike out a little bit, but the hits has home run power, was on a Creighton team that made the NCAA tournament. So, I mean, there's some good talent. So you lose Hudson Devon. Yeah, it stinks. It would be awesome if you signed all 20 of 20, but I think the Royals got some good picks. I think they got some good upside with signing Jack Slydom and, being able to sign Camden Johnson, guys that were obviously over slot selections. So, I think Bridges and the team did a really good job. I mean, a lot's going to hinge on Zion Rose and what he does, but I think overall that there's some really good depth in this class.
Yeah, I mean, the undrafted free agent, too, I'm excited about is Jackson Cleveland out of Oklahoma. He was a closer for the Sooners in the College World Series, helping them get their College World Series win. Guy's just a game around the mound. Like, I think he's kind of a dude who bursted on the scenes. Wasn't perfect all season long, had his struggles, but down the stretch, he was just absolutely dominant. I think the Royals saw something in him. And kind of going back to the Hudson Devon pick, I think people are frustrated that they didn't sign the 19th rounder. Just Baseball, we had him as the 152nd overall prospect. Prep kid, a lot of upside. Still a lot, though, to get polished on his end. He's going to take his chances and go to Alabama. The Crimson Tide have been a great baseball program under head coach Rob Vaughn. I think some of the frustration is that the Royals had $829,000 in bonus pool remaining, and then the $150,000 for the slot that Hudson Devon had. So almost $1 million. Again, don't know how much money went to Ben North, Jackson Cleveland, Jim Natty. They're going to take up some of that bonus pool money because your undrafted free agents do take up some of that bonus pool money. So, yeah, I mean, I get it, but I kept looking at it. I was like, okay, what would happen if they had taken Drew Burress, number 1 overall, or Eric Booth Jr.? I put the bonus slot in there. They wouldn't have had the money to get Jack Slydom. They probably wouldn't have had the money to take Taylor Rabe, even though he was only like $7,000, I think, over slot. They wouldn't have the money to get Camden Johnson. So they probably saw, they're like, okay, well, we got $100K left over here. Let's take a shot, see if we can get Hudson to sign. If he doesn't, oh well. We've got some undrafted free agent guys we can try to bring in as well.
And I think you made a good point. I mean, it's you have 800,000. I'm guessing a lot of that was going to Devon, and he still decided not to sign. I know you talked about this on Twitter a little bit, but with Kyle DeGroat being kind of an
Yep.
example of a guy who was a prep pitcher, very heralded, late round, um, got 357K, and he was a 14th rounder. So if Hudson Devon's getting probably an offer that's probably twice that Kyle DeGroat got, and he's still turning it down. I mean, you're not gonna sign the guy, and that's probably a reason why he went to the 19th round and why no other team selected him, because they're probably like, we can't convince him to leave his Alabama commitment. The Royals said, hey, we got some extra money, might as well make a shot and see what we got and see if he'll budge. He did it. You know what? You can afford to lose a 19th round pick. It's not something you're going to say, oh, we lost the draft now because we didn't sign our 19th rounder.
Yeah, and it's like again, I don't think the Royals expected either to pay Dylan Vigil almost 400K over slot, but again, that's the changing landscape of the NIL, and I think that's something that maybe Royals fans don't quite understand is that NIL has really changed the draft completely. We saw a lot of prep guys turn down opportunities to go to the draft and go to campus instead. Like LSU, I think you should see their freshman class. They got basically an entire B team from their freshman class, all guys who were like top 150, top 200 prospects for the MLB draft, all heading to campus. And the same thing with the transfer portal now in college baseball. Like guys can enter even Cam Flukie, who went 20th overall to the Tigers, went to the transfer portal because he probably was trying to leverage it to get some extra money from whoever is going to take him. And so guys are doing that now. And like Dylan Vigil was one of the marquee arms for Georgia last year. He was the Friday night starter, basically. He was the guy who was eating innings for them. They probably gave him a pretty hefty NIL deal to try to get him to come back to campus, and the Royals had to pay up in order to get him to sign.
Yeah. And that's just the reality. It's like you're not just battling, "Oh, okay, I'm just battling to get the best signing bonus." Sometimes the signing bonus doesn't even matter because again, if Hudson Devon's turning down, somewhere between 600 and $800,000, it's probably because he's getting more, or he thinks he can get more than that at Alabama. And I think, we've talked about the CBA, how's that going to affect the draft? There's a reason why I think some are saying, hey, this is why we're not going to have preps anymore, because now the preps are, unless like you're a first round, a second round pick and you're making top money, it's like you might as well just go to college, right? And because you're going to get way more money. You're going to get, especially if you're playing in the SEC, that's going to be a way better environment rather than, playing in a low A environment, or playing in the complex league. So I totally get it. I totally get what it's going to be harder for teams to get prep guys if prep guys are still eligible.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it's, I don't, you looked at some of the, like, what was it? I think Carson Boleman got close to $4 million. That was a guy that the Royals were in on. The prep bonuses this entire draft were kind of insane to see.
Yeah.
Guys were getting $3-4 million, and it was just kind of shot. Like Logan Schmidt, we talked about, was it the second rounder for the Guardians, didn't sign, and he's potentially going to go to LSU. He's considering JUCO versus LSU, but they had a slot value, I think, of close to $3 million right there, and he's still not going to go to the Guardians.
Yeah. And that's a good organization. I mean, it's not like well, I'm going to go to the Rockies, and it's like, the Guardians win. The Guardians are known for developing guys. So with Logan Schmidt, a pitcher nonetheless. And so, Logan Schmidt saying, hey, I'm not going to sign, I think that just kind of shows you that it's tough. There's serious money in college athletics, and there's serious money in college baseball. And especially if you got an LSU commitment, it's going to be tough to sway some of these guys if they're at an SEC school.
Yeah, I was kind of looking at this. I think there's a interactive signing bonus breakdown, and it's like it's just hard to figure out like how to get these guys to campus. It's just going to be tough. Get these guys to sign over going to campus. It's just one of those hard things. But overall, looking at the class, what are your thoughts just kind of at the top, looking at Zion Rose, Taylor Rabe, Jack Slidham, Max Eel, Dominic Batista? I feel like that's a good top four. They're coming to the Royals farm system.
I agree. I think I really like it. It's a nice balance. You got the prep guys like Batista and Slidham with some upside. I think Batista is kind of a guy that I think went low because of some of the hamate injuries and, just a slow developer. But it's like you look at a lot of the scouting reports, they really are high on him. and obviously slide him. We know his upside, but then you got some good guys that can really move fast. I mean, ideally, right? Like Zion Rose should move fast. Taylor Rabe should move fast. Those are very polished guys. And I think, to be honest, like I think if you looked going into this draft and you said, hey, we're going to get a polished college bat that can make the majors in a couple years, Royals fans have been said, awesome. That's great. Like, where do we sign? But it's Zion Rose, and everybody's like, oh, that's terrible. He was ranked 25th, 30th by Pipeline. What are they doing? So I mean, I think it's I think it's good. I mean, last year's draft, you kind of went upside with Hammond and Gamble. So I like kind of saying, hey, we're going to go Rose and Rabe for this draft. And I think that's what you got to do as you're developing your farm system.
Yeah, and I think the notion was like the number one guy for the Royals was Jackson Flora, right?
Yeah,
and he didn't
it was.
fall to them, and that was like you could tell kind of from the conversation with Bridges and just kind of hearing the rumors that were floating around Twitter, like they wanted Flora, and they were like, we got the Giants and Pirates in front of us, like what are the chances that we're going to get him? Because both teams I think were in on Flora as well, and so like they probably went to, okay, what's our 1B? It was probably Eric Booth Jr. And Zion Rose, and like I heard Zion Rose rumors well before the draft. Like the Royals loved this kid. And the closer we got to draft day, I think the more the realization came, like Zion Rose was not falling to 30. Some team was going to take him in the top 15. It was going to happen. People just love the bat. You see what he did at the USA collegiate team where he was like 13 for 13. Absolutely just mashed. He just gets barrel the ball. He's very athletic. Like the guy's a powder keg in terms of athleticism. And that's why the Royals took a chance on him at 6. Like they couldn't get Eric Booth Jr. down in the number that they wanted. And they wanted some slot money to do some things like get a Taylor Rabe, to get a Jack Slidham who has a ton of upside. Like I looked at Drew Burris's $7.5 million, and everybody's like, oh, they should have just taken Drew Burris if they're going to take a college guy. Well, $7.5 million, you got $246,000 left over in slot.
Yeah.
Right. You can say that like, okay, well, they didn't use 800,000 of that or whatever, 600,000 of that on Hudson Devon. They'd still be like $1 million short on getting like a Slidham or anybody else with those next 2 picks.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, it's like, is Burris that much better a prospect? And I know some people might say yes than compared to Rose, but I mean, I think the Royals didn't feel that way. I think the Royals felt, I don't, I think that was kind of the, hey, we just don't think Burris is probably as great. That's gonna like really deter us from getting Rose. And again, same kind of guys. I mean, they're polished college bats. They're gonna move quickly. It's not like oh, instead of Kyle Teal, we got Blake Mitchell, right? It's like these are pretty similar. This is like comparing apples to apples with this draft pick. I think it's like, it's just a matter of, hey, like, do you buy in on Rose more upside because he was hurt, or do you buy in the more like proven stuff with Drew Burris? I think that's really what it boiled down to.
Yeah, I mean, like preseason, we were talking about Zion Rose being top 15 in the ranks, before he went down with the injury. So it's just one of those things. And like Burris, I think the only argument you could say he's a better defender, right?
Yes.
But again, Zion's new to the outfield. He was a catcher coming out of high school, going into college. So again, I think we'll see how this class turns out. It's always hard to tell how the draft class is going. I'm not going to have any predictions here saying it's going to turn out perfect, going to turn out great, or turn out bad. It's just hard to predict. But speaking of bolstering the farm system, the trade deadline is upon us. I think August 3rd is the trade deadline this year.
Yeah.
So we have the influx of the Rose and the Rabes coming into this farm system with the draft class. Where else do you think that the Royals could add at this trade deadline? Can they move Elaine Thomas? Can they move some of the relievers that they have on staff and try to really kind of bolster this farm system?
When I'm looking at this farm system, I'm not expecting like a lot of talent unless they get some throw-ins that are going to be like low A, high A guys. I think if you're going to see talent that's coming in, these are going to be guys that are going to be double A, triple A guys that could maybe matriculate to the majors by the end of the year. I mean, right now, the problem with this system is not in the lower levels. The Quad Cities River Bandits, the Columbia Fireflies, the Arizona Complex League, it's all flush with talent. Like, I think if you kind of said, compare the Royals just at those 3 levels, it's a pretty good system. There's some really big names there. The problem is that double A and triple A. I mean, triple A is pretty much old dudes. Let's just say it what it is. I mean, Abraham Toro is like your best player, and Double A is there's been just a lot of disappointments. I mean, there's some intriguing guys, but the pitching has been bad in Double A. I mean, it's like I think if you're gonna say, hey, who's been the best Double A pitcher, it's a really hard one to find. So I could see that if JJ is making deals, it's going to be guys that are going to be in Double A, Triple A, guys that are going to be able to move, and I think it's going to be guys that Piccolo is going to say, hey, like I'm thinking about 2027. I'm getting guys that I think that are going to be able to crack the opening day roster in 2027. So I think that's going to be nice to kind of see like some fast moving prospects because they really need it right now.
Yeah, and I feel like the only way they're going to get any kind of prospect haul that's not just like a maybe double A, triple A ready guys if they move Michael Wacha.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
Yeah.
and they've heard JJ talk that he doesn't want to move Wacha, but at the same time, like, I think if he's blown away, like they're probably going to push Wacha out the door, just because like it's gonna be hard to turn down a deal like that. I know you're trying to compete for 2027. You like you said, you want to bring in pieces where they think they can kind of backfill that roster going into next year because you have that core of Michael Massey who's really kind of broke out this year. Cags is broke out. Carter Jensen, Bobby Witt Jr., Michael Garcia. Like you have that core offense, and you don't want to blow up the rotation going into 27 and be in the same situation you are this year.
Yeah. And I think that's the hard part, right? Or you don't want to be in a situation where it's like, hey, we're going to have to eat money for a guy that we might not get a great return for, which is like Seth Lugo, right? It's like, okay, we're going to eat Seth Lugo's contract to get, Drew Waters type prospect. I mean, it's like, what's the point of that? Especially like you said, it's, Reagan's is going to be out. Or they're going to be Bubich is going to be gone. Cameron had a good start last time, but like he's been kind of a mess this year. Avila has been good, but he struggles with control at times in his command. And so, I mean, there's just a lot of unprovenness. And so if you're trading Wacha and Lugo, that you better do it in free agency because you're going to need somebody that's going to be an opening day starter.
Yeah. And I mean, like we talk about Lugo all the time, like the numbers aren't great, but you're still going to have to pay up in free agency for a guy who's going to put together those numbers, who's going to eat the number of innings. Like there's no guarantee that you're going to get a contract cheaper than Lugo's to replace him.
Yeah, it's just the pitching market's expensive because guys get hurt, and that's just how it is. And as much as we want to say like, I get it, try to trade Lugo last year, but I also understand where JJ was coming from. It's like we're gonna have to replace him anyways in free agency. There's nobody that's coming up like from the AAA or AA that's gonna fill that spot. So, and again, signing Lugo has been a blessing in some ways because you saw Berger get hurt. You saw Reagan's get hurt. Kolek's hurt now. Alec Marsh has died. I don't know what's happened to him. Like, it's like we haven't heard him for the last 2 years. So it's just, there is a value in being able to eat innings, regardless if it's elite innings.
Yeah, and it was the same case with Wacha. Like he's been great this year, and it's like they signed him to an extension for a reason. Like you're not going to find that kind of price on the free agent market. You're not going to be able to do that. Are there any, I guess, like who do you think is the biggest trade candidates for the Royals?
I mean, I think you got Wacha. I mean, obviously Lane Thomas. I mean, it makes sense. John Schreiber. I mean, those guys that have that 1 year, like, hey, they're going to be gone. They're most likely going to be gone after this year. Those are the guys that are going to have value. So, Schreiber, what's it called? Yeah, Lane Thomas, I think are going to be the big ones that are going to be traded. I think there could be some like, with the emergence of Nick Lofton, maybe Michael Massey could be thrown in the trade mix. I don't know what his value will be because, he's had an injury history himself. But I think maybe guys like Matt Stram could be another trade piece. So it'll be really interesting. This is not, other than Wacha, it's not like this team is really flush, right? It's not like it's like, oh yeah, like we know exactly who we're going to trade. And this is an interesting spot because, the last couple of years, the Royals have been buyers, right? The last couple of years, they've been saying, hey, we're going to add on. And now they're kind of back to where they were in 2023. But in 2023, you had Chapman. 2023, you had Scott Barlow. Like, you don't got those guys. I mean, you still have Scott Barlow, but he's not going to be traded because he's in AAA getting mashed right now in Omaha. So.
Yeah, so I think the trade deadline will be interesting. I'm curious kind of see what JJ does this year. And again, like you don't really have a ton of trade pieces unless you move a Waka or a Lugo. So I think that's going to be like, is anybody going to really want Starling Marte? That he can't really play a defensive position. The bat's not the same that it used to be. It's just going to be tough to trade that. I think the Royals fans are going to have higher expectations than what's going to actually turn out.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really calm one. I think we're going to have a couple of deals. We're going to get some interesting players, but this is not going to be like a big one by any means.
No. Uh, we are going to next give out some midseason awards to some of the top minor leaguers throughout the season. We're going to go through each position. We've got guys picked for each position on who we're going to give some awards. But first, we're going to take a quick break.
The attorneys at Northland Injury Law have been serving the Kansas City area for over 40 years, helping people with serious injuries from car accidents, work accidents, falls, and other personal injuries. They want to help you, and we don't get paid unless we get money for you. If you have a case, call 816-400-HURT. That's 816-400-4878 now.
Heather Luce, broker owner, KC Local Homes, and Emprise Bank has been a great partner for us. They're our partner in Possible. Debbie and I hit it off immediately, and she was one of the first bankers that I would say sat down with me and actually like genuinely cared about my story and where I was coming from and what I was trying to do, not just what kind of loan do you need, how much equity do you have, and she really kind of laid out my options for me and just made the process make sense, and I felt comfortable with it. Start to talk about it and think about it, a building popped up that I wanted, that I could afford, and it was in a great area. And so they really guided me through the SBA. I used the SBA loan to acquire it and really guided me through that process and made it happen. I think that we talk about that a lot, where we wouldn't have a business. We wouldn't have what we have here if we didn't have the clientele that we do. I've always functioned out of a people over profits mentality. The houses sell themselves, right? Like, I'm here to help people and facilitate the transaction for them.
David Starnes Allstate Insurance is a proud partner of KC Sports Network, serving the Kansas City area and all throughout the Midwest. If you are looking for new coverage or something that better suits your home, auto, health, or any of your other insurance needs, give Dave and his team a call. Elevate your coverage and be worry-free with David Starnes Allstate Insurance.
All right, we are back. We just covered the trade deadline, the MLB draft. We're in the midseason awards section of the podcast here. Kevin and I pulled together our starting lineup, basically, and starting rotation of guys that, in bullpen also, of guys we think that deserve some midseason awards. Just wanted to give some guys love who've been really the top performers. We're going to start with catcher. So who is your guy that you picked here for catcher?
My catcher was Ramon Ramirez in High A Quad Cities. He's off to a really good start, 296 average, 124 WRC plus. He's been a very consistent, complete hitting catcher. Defensively, I think he's lags a little bit. I don't think like his footwork is always the best. I think he has good arm strength, but he's not as athletic as a Blake Mitchell or a Carter Jensen was, but the guy can hit, and it's like, and at the very least, we're kind of seeing that his bat can play. He's stayed healthy, which has been a big thing because in Columbia last year, he struggled to stay healthy. So we've kind of got to see like him really break out because he's been able to stay on the field. So I really like Ramon Ramirez at catcher from his first half.
Speaking of healthy, I went with another guy who was nice to see on the field this entire season, Blake Mitchell. Again, in High A, 130 wins, runs, or WRC plus. 34% strikeout rate. We all know that's the issue. That's been the issue since they've taken Blake Mitchell. But again, 22.5% walk rate, right? This guy's got an incredible feel for the zone. You always kind of wonder, like, is it because he's being too passive? That's why the strikeout rate is too high. But he's still posting an 879 OPS. He's been absolutely destroying the baseball. Blake Mitchell's just been a ton of fun to watch. Again, we can go back to the Kyle Teal versus Blake Mitchell debate for years as we kind of go on. But the success you're seeing from Mitchell at 21 in High A, you have to be happy. I mean, you're probably going to see him in Double A by the end of the year. He's going to probably start Double A next year. There's a chance we could see him in the show in 27 or 28.
I really like, I've been more impressed with Blake Mitchell. Again, my concerns are still there, but we know that the worry last year was the power. We saw the power go down last year. The power has bounced back. He gets on base. He's been always a very solid defensive catcher. And I think at the very least, his power and defense is going to be able to help carry him up levels.
Yeah, I agree. Moving over to first base, who do you got here?
I have Brett Squires. He's been a guy that's really moved well this year. He's has 21 home runs across AA and AAA, 131 WRC plus. He's an interesting guy is that he's not really a defensive standout. I mean, it's like you kind of see his profile as very similar to CJ Alexander, where it's like, he can play the corners, he can play maybe a corner outfielder in a pinch, but he's not great. But yeah, this guy was an undrafted free agent out of Oklahoma. Now he's knocking on the door. I think the only reason he's not up is because like he plays positions where they're pretty set. They're set in the corner outfields. They're set at first base. So it's like you just like where are you going to play him? And even third base when Michael Garcia hurt, like Nick Lofton's been perfectly great there. So but I mean, he's really been a pure hitter. I'd like to see him get an opportunity, but he's definitely been one of the most standout players at first base in the first half.
Yeah, Squires was my DH utility selection because I didn't know where to put him. I was like, I'm going to throw him in there just because I didn't know where to quite put him. And it's like you said, it's been impressive. He reminds me a little bit in terms of like the late blooming of Whit Merrifield, but the upside that Merrifield has, he could play everywhere. Basically, you could stick Whit anywhere in the outfield. You could stick him at the corners. You could even like if on a worst case scenario, you could stick him at shortstop as well. He's played second base, so I think that's where Squires, like you said, is going to run into some problems. Is just trying to figure out where he's going to play positionally. First baseman I went with was JC Vanek. This is the guy that we had on the podcast. Has been having an absolute tear. Has up to an 808 OPS in low A, 7 doubles, 10 home runs, 3 triples, 14 stolen bases. So seeing a first baseman with double-digit bags here 70 games into the season is pretty impressive. Again, this was the Royals' 14th rounder from last year's draft. Has really kind of showcased his abilities here. He is striking out at a 27% clip, but he's walking at a 15.8% rate as well. And he's just really kind of coming to his own here in low A. Again, he's a JUCO kid, might be a little bit old for the level, but he's still 21. So I think he's at right where he needs to be. Probably will get a call up to high A at some point here soon.
I like that pick, and I know we're biased because we got to interview JC Vanek, and he was a great dude, but he's been putting up good numbers. And again, he's got a nice mix of power and speed. He's got a very consistent plate approach. I mean, he goes up there with a plan, and even though he does strike out a lot, he draws a lot of walks. I mean, he's been a very key run producer for this Columbia team, and the only thing I think he just doesn't hit for high average. So you look at like his high average, and he gets kind of lost, but you take everything else away. And I think there's a guy who's really good there. He's a gamer. I'm really excited about him moving to high A because I think if something can tick a little bit, like maybe the strikeouts can decrease a little. I mean, even if he's a 250, 260 guy, I mean, that could be a really big value.
No, I agree. Moving on to second base. Who do you got here?
He's mixed around between second and short, but I kind of wanted to keep him at second, and that's been Yandel Ricardo. And Ricardo's been really interesting because I feel like his prospect status has kind of decreased a little bit the last couple years. I think going into 2024, he was kind of hyped as like a top 10 guy. He was coming out of the DSL. He was a big time signing out of Cuba. People are talking about like, oh, Yandel Ricardo. And he kind of struggled like when he got to Columbia last year. And again, he was an 18-year-old, just really was probably overwhelmed. This year, he got off to a slow start. And I think, again, people forgot about Ricardo. But, he's got 6 home runs, 21 stolen bases, 106 WRC plus. He's got a 0.50 walk to K ratio, which is very good for like, a DSL guy. Usually those guys tend to be pretty free swing and don't draw a lot of walks. Excellent defender who can play, multiple positions in the infield. And to be honest, he's actually younger than Josh Hammond and Sean Gamble. And so, that's why I think I think Ricardo is a guy that's been slept on. And I know that there's just so much talent in Columbia that it's really easy to forget about him. But I think he's a guy that I think needs to be on more people's radars. I mean, I don't think this is like a Daniel Vasquez who was kind of more of a glove over bat kind of guy. I think Ricardo has some legitimacy, especially with his plate approach.
Yeah, doing this at 19 and A ball is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I went 20-year-old in the complex league here, and I kind of cheated because Grayson Moran has played more games at first base than second base, but he has played 9 games at second base, so I'm sliding him into the second base role here. Tyson Moran has been absolutely incredible for the Kansas City Royals in the Arizona Complex League. 123 wins run created plus. He's walking at only a 12.5% clip, but he's only striking out at a 13% clip, which is good for a 0.96 K to walk ratio. Tyson Moran has one of the guys that I was like really, really intrigued on from the 2025 MLB draft. He's the 13th rounder. He's got in 50 games, 12 doubles, 2 triples, 7 home runs, 54 RBIs. And he's got 26 walks, 27 strikeouts. Like, why we haven't seen this kid at A-ball, I have to imagine he's going to be up there soon.
Yeah.
There's probably just a log jam on the infield, and they're trying to probably figure out defensively where he can play. Just looking at his fielding, he's played 29 games at first, 12 at DH, 9 at second base. So they know he can hit. It just seems like they're trying to figure out defensively where he's going to play at the next level. But the bat's been super impressive, and the kid out of Canada has just been showing up.
Yeah, and I think that's a great one too. They've been kind of slow playing him, like you've talked about, and I think you're right. I think that's just a lot like, hey, we just really need to find a spot for him defensively. We know he can hit. And I could see that. I think once he kind of finds that, I could see him being a guy that moves quickly. It's like once he finds his spot, because the plate approach is incredible. I mean, even for complex league, it's still very good.
Yeah, you love to see it. We got the same pick for the next one at third base. Hard to go against Derlin Figueroa here.
Really, it is. I mean, he's 19 home runs, 11 stolen bases. You know, this was a guy that we acquired in the Ryan Yarbrough trade, I think in 2023 with the Dodgers. It was kind of seen as a pretty good pick. I mean, there were some comparisons that his profile was very similar to Yordan Alvarez, which, you know, that's pretty lofty. I mean, comparing somebody to Yordan, but there was a lot of similarities there. And he looked really good initially. Like, he had a good Columbia campaign in like 2024. And then he just like cratered in 2025, like in Quad Cities. I think he had a 57 WRC plus. And I think part of that was injuries. And I think he just wasn't healthy. And again, people slept on him. They're like, we've kind of forgot about him. And he's just been really good. And I think, you know, again, this is a guy that probably will be in AA soon. And is this a guy that could be a sleeper? And probably once, like maybe Michael Garcia's towards the end of his contract, is this a guy that could probably fill in at third base and get some playing time there? I think he's one to watch.
Yeah, the only concern I have with him is just the strikeout rate, right? He's up above 30%. So you want to see that come down to like the 25% range. He's below 10% on the walk rate. So again, he's 22 years old in a high A. There's some room for improvement there. But like you said, like, that's super impressive. Everything he's been doing, he's been mashing baseballs. As you mentioned, up to 19 home runs. Like, it's like getting that for Ryan Yarbrough. You've got to be pretty happy if you're the Royals.
Yeah, I mean, those are kind of some of the high upside guys we want. And you know, maybe we'll get somebody like that, you know, at the trade deadline for maybe like a John Schreiber or something like that. I think if you're looking for a guy like, oh, who's John Schreiber going to get? It's like, well, maybe somebody with that Derlin Figueroa kind of profile.
Yeah, I agree. Moving on to shortstop, again, we are in the same boat here. Josh Hammond, 105 wins run WRC plus, up to 20 stolen bases. You kind of talked about, and I think on the last pod, he's kind of cooled off a little bit, but he's really started to kind of just kind of showcase his own here in his first year of Pro Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, 291 average. I mean, again, he's first year of Pro Bowl, right out of prep, you know, and again, he's been solid. I mean, he cooled off, especially in the power stats, but he's getting on base. He's getting base hits. He's been kind of the guy in Columbia which is not easy. But you know, I think to be honest, he's been the most high profile shortstop. I mean, he's probably anywhere from 1 to 4, depending on the prospect experts in terms of their system. So I love what we've seen from Hammond this year. I think this is a guy that's, you know, the Royals have been kind of wanting as like a very like good athlete with some high upside and some ceiling, and Hammond fits that bill perfectly.
The best thing about him is, one, he's 19 in A-ball, only striking out 20% of the time, but he was originally considered an arm in the draft. Like, no one thought that he was going to be a bat first profile. He went to work because he wanted to play. He wanted to play shortstop and he wanted to play infield. He didn't want to pitch. and he put in the work his senior year. Next thing you know, he was a first rounder as an infielder. So again, it shows you like the ceiling that's there. The fact that like everybody was considering him an arm in the draft, and now he just got drafted as a shortstop by the Royals. I think that's been impressive. And again, like you mentioned, he's cooled off, but like that's going to happen with a 19-year-old who's playing his first year of pro ball.
And I think that shows maybe, hey, is there some room to kind of grow? It's not like, again, he's been more known for other things, more known for his arm and being maybe a pitcher. And, is he going to be growing into being a shortstop? And that's a pretty good debut we have right now in A ball. And so I'm really excited to see what his projection will be once he starts moving to Quad Cities and AA.
Yeah, I love it. Moving on to the outfield, let's start with the guy we both also have here, Luke Pelzer, who's been absolutely mashing between high A and double A. 909 OPS, 28 stolen bases, 4 home runs, 60 RBIs. This is coming from a 17th rounder out of the University of Illinois, Chicago.
Yes, the Flames, not the Illini, the Flames.
Yeah,
which is the weirdest mascot to have. Like, it's going to be our mascot. We're going to have it up with the Great Chicago Fire. So, I think one thing that really stuck out when we talked with Brian Bridges, because he talked about Pelzer, and he said, this is where the scouts and the analytic guys, we really agreed on. It was like they said that the analytics guys loved Pelzer, the scouts loved Pelzer. They said, like, this was an easy selection for us. And I think that's a really good sign of where this organization has come under JJ, because I know for sure that the analytics guys and the scouts were probably not on the same page all the time under Dayton Moore. And there's still a lot of organizations where the analytics guys and the scouts aren't on the same page.
Yeah.
And so, I think Pelzer is a great example of like, hey, this is the kind of the new approach. And you got to love a guy like this. He's a gamer. It's a lot of results. It doesn't, like, maybe the tools aren't eye popping, but he just produces. And so I think it's just what he's doing has been really impressive. He's obviously can drive in runs. He can steal bases. He's efficient when he steals bases. So I think this is, I think there's going to be a couple guys from this draft that are going to be like this profile, like Tanner Griffith, for example.
Yeah,
to me feels very much like a Luke Pelzer 2.0. And so I'm really I think this is a great sign of what this organization is doing and how they're different than maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, and Pelzer's the guy who's 23 already, so it's good to see that he's in Double A, because I think next year you could see him debut. There's a good chance he's not going to Double A next year, and he's just starting right in Omaha.
Yeah, and again, if he hits a Double A, what's the point of keeping him there? There's no point.
Yeah. I want to move on to a guy who's opposite of 23 years old, 17-year-old Eindebel Gomez out of the DSL. He's entered top 100 prospects list, I believe, on MLB Pipeline and Baseball America. Gomez is this is the best DSL prospect that I think we've seen the Royals have in a very, very long time. He's at a 149 WRC plus, a 1081 OPS. He is walking 14.4% of the time and only striking out 10.6% of the time. I get it. It's a DSL. Your pitching down there is not great because you're going against a bunch of 16, 17, 18-year-old type arms. But even those numbers happening in the DSL are super impressive.
Yeah, and it's like he's got everything that you want. I mean, the numbers are obviously good, but the size, the athleticism, the tools, they also match too. So, I mean, the one thing I will say is that home runs are not very common in the DSL. Honestly, like when you see guys like home run totals, it's usually like even the top prospects are getting like 2, 3, and he's got, I believe, 6 home runs. Like that's pretty impressive. And the stolen bases, like you said, this is probably one of the best DSL prospects the Royals have had in a very long time. I mean, I don't think we've seen one with as much hype since maybe Eric Pena, and Eric Pena was all just based on hype. It wasn't based on any performance or anything of that. It was just based on like body and all that kind of stuff. So I'm really excited about this. And again, the fact that we have Baseball America and Pipeline are saying, hey, this is a top 100 guy, that makes it feel like that's legitimate. It's not just like, oh yeah, like he's doing good numbers, because we see a lot of guys who put up good numbers in the DSL, but to be able to have that clout that you're saying, like, yeah, he's a top 100 guy, that's really exciting.
Yeah, that's awesome. Wrapping up the outfield here, you have Carson Roccaforte.
Yeah, I had Carson Rockefeller. I mean, there's definitely flaws in the profile, and I talked about this on Twitter. It's like you look at his StatCast percentiles via TJ Stats, and the whiff rates are concerning, the K rates are concerning. Um, he one of the things that has surprised me with him this year is he's been very inefficient on stolen bases. 16 caught stealings to 18 stolen bases. Like that's not really good. Like, I mean, it's like
No.
I don't expect you to be like, 90%, but I mean, that's like you're barely having a 50% clip for a guy who has speed. But he's shown some power this year. He's always had a plus defensive tool. At some point, it's like I'll be really curious to see what they do with him. Like, are they gonna let him go to the Rule 5 drafts? Are they gonna add him to the 40-man roster? I don't think he'd get selected if he was in the Rule 5 draft. I mean, my gut says no, but you never know. But I do think he's been a guy that's been noteworthy because I think the power has kind of developed more. Like I never really saw him like 2 years ago as a 20 homer guy. Like I never saw that. And now he's hit 20 home runs. And so he's like, okay, maybe there's some power intrigue there that I didn't really expect. And so we'll see.
Yeah, I think it's a tough struggle with Rockefeller because in terms of like the Rule 5 and whether you add him to the 40-man roster, like obviously like space is limited on the 40-man, but you're looking at a guy that they took with a competitive balance pick, B, 66 overall. I feel like they end up adding him just because they don't like if he gets selected by another team and he goes off, they're gonna have a ton of regret. That's I think going to be the hard thing for the front office to swallow. And like you said, he's got 21 home runs. He's got an 815 OPS. The strikeout rate is kind of higher than you want it to be, but it's not super egregious. It's still at 28.6%. I feel like this is a guy that you could add to the 40-man, and he could fill in if you have an injury. I mean, we've seen Cameron Missner up there and a bunch of other guys. So it's like, is Carson Rockefeller a worse option than those guys? I think not. I think like he's a better option than most of those guys.
Yeah, at least there's some ceiling there, right? And it's like, and I think that's a good point. I think sometimes it just matters what your draft stock was. I mean, like a Ben Crudena, for example, like I don't think anybody would have drafted him in the Rule 5 if he was eligible. I mean, because he had really struggled in AAA and got hit. Like, I mean, is he really going to stay on a 40-man or 26-man roster for a whole season? Like, I don't think so. So I mean, it's going to be really interesting because I think there are other guys that would most likely get drafted. Like, for example, I think Gavin Cross, after his hot streak right now, probably would get drafted by a team in the Rule 5 draft now. But I don't think Carson Rockefeller would. So I think that'll be really interesting to see what they do.
Yeah. I went a different route here, and I went with another guy who's like Luke Pelzer, basically. And Nolan Trailers, 23-year-old and high A outfielder. He's probably the next guy up to kind of get called up. 15 doubles, 9 triples, 4 home runs, 23 RBIs, 28 stolen bases. It's very similar to Luke Pelzer's kind of slash line as well. He's only hitting up for a little bit lower average, 273, but he's got an 805 OPS. This is their 4th rounder out of Creighton, and this guy was a money saver. So like, you look at 4th rounder, you're like, oh, 4th rounder. He's not like Luke Pelzer winning the 17th, but Sailors saved them some money, and that's part of the reason why he was selected in the 4th round.
Yeah, I really like him too, and it's surprisingly Creighton has really produced some guys. I mean, between Sailors, between Ben North with undrafted free agent, then you have like Nicky Lopez and Isaac Collins who are Creighton guys. You just kind of get like the same mold of these guys who are really scrappy and can really have good plate approaches. And so I really kind of agree with you. I think this was a good one too. Nolan Sailors has done everything and has just hit, and he's been the primary leadoff guy too in Quad Cities. So I think that kind of shows the trust that the coaching staff has in him to like set the table for this River Bandits team.
Yeah. I just want to give one more outfielder a shout out because you mentioned him already. Gavin Cross. He didn't get the list because he didn't have a good first half, but he just hit a 6 home run tonight.
Oh my God.
So 6 straight games.
I mean, it's so tough with him because where do you play him?
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, I guess maybe you can try him in center field, but even then,
Trey Lane Thomas and call him up.
That's, I mean, yeah. I mean, it's like, sorry, Kyle, you're just gonna have to stay on the IL right now. So, but it's this is getting ridiculous. I mean, it's kind of, I mean, at this point, it's you just got to call him up just to do it. At this point,
honestly, you could probably trade Lane Thomas, DFA Starling Marte, and then call it a day. bring up crossing a spell.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you're going to be lefty heavy, but at this point, it doesn't even matter, right?
Yeah,
It's like, I mean, and honestly, it's not like Starling Marte has been great against lefties this year. That's been kind of one of the interesting things is that Starling Marte has actually been better against righties than he has lefties this year. So, I think you're right. Like, I think if they don't trade Starling Marte, I think you just DFA him because it's just like, there's no point, man. You got 0.2% playoff odds on Fangraphs. Let's just move on.
Yeah. We're gonna move to the rotation.
Yeah.
Both have the same first pick here, Kendry Turio. I mean,
Yeah.
is there more to say at this point?
Yeah, he's the best pitcher, guys. Like, I mean, this guy is a stud. He's striking out more in Quad Cities than he did in Columbia. I mean, he had a good showing in the Futures game. Yeah. If you're not saying he's the number one prospect right now, like, you're like sniffing glue or something right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's been insane to watch what he's been able to do this year. Just it's high strikeout percentages. It's everything you kind of would want in terms of dominance. The 79 strikeouts and 78 and 2/3 innings, 2.06 ERA. Doesn't matter what level he's at. He lives in the strike zone. He dominates in the strike zone. Doesn't walk a ton of guys. Like Kendry Turio has ace level stuff. I don't think we've seen a DSL pitcher coming out since Giordano Ventura. That's been like a Kendry Turio.
And a lot of people have said that, and that's always high praise because it's like, hey, is he going to live up to that? And he has. He really has lived up to that hype. I mean, last week he was part of a combined no hitter with Emmanuel Reyes against the Wisconsin Timber Rattlers, who are a good team. That's the Brewers. That's the Brewers high A organization that he threw a no hitter against. So I mean, I think it's like there was so much hype about him going into this year. And he's really lived up to it. And I think that's a promising sign. I think right now the only thing that could hold him back is injury, but he's done a good job of being durable. So, he's not a huge guy, so that's the thing you worry about. But neither was Giordano Ventura. He wasn't a big guy either.
No. I think like that's got a little bit overlooked. Like you have the stuff, no matter the size.
Yeah.
Tim Lincecum did it for years and won a few Cy Youngs, so it can happen.
Yeah, Pedro Martinez, right? Yeah. It can happen.
We're going to stick on this because we have the same picks again. David Shields, again, been absolutely dominant, has moved into the top 100 prospects. He's got a 10.37 K9 ratio in 87 and 2/3 innings. He's just absolutely dominated. Again, we talk about Kendry Turio, who he's got a 1.60 based on balls to 9 innings. David Shields has a 2.67 too. So David Shields has been dominating, living in the strike zone. Again, this is a kid who's been moved up to a high A at 19 years old. People had concerns about the fastball coming out of the draft because it was low 90s. He's still kind of in that range, but he's seen a little bit of an uptick. But again, when you have a 4-pitch mix like he does, that he absolutely works the corner of the strike zones. He lives in the strike zone. Like he doesn't give up a ton of home runs. Like he has a 0.62 home run to 9 ratio. So this kid absolutely dominates.
Yeah. And again, some of this, the problem is right. He was just so good in Columbia last year. And he was Carolina League pitcher of the year. And he's been good this year, but he's had some rough batted ball luck, and his ERA is up at 4.11, but his FIP is a lot better at 3.73. But all the stats that you want to see, the K rate, the K to walk ratio, those are all solid, so it's I'm encouraged by it. I think sometimes he's had those starts where it got a little bit away from him and then there's been a lot of runs, but then he follows it up with like a shutout performance. That's the one thing that's really been nice with Shields is that he bounces back, and that's really good to see from a 19-year-old. I mean, we've seen a lot of prep pitchers, guys like Blake Walters, guys like Hero Wyatt, who struggled to do that. And even though they were kind of just as heralded. So, I really like Shields. I'm really hopeful that him and Churio are going to be kind of that 1-2 punch in the future.
Yeah. I will mention, because we're on Shields here, we talk about Brian Bridges and what he's done for the Kansas City Royals in terms of bolstering this farm system. 2 of the 4 who are in the top 100, Josh Hammond, David Shields, Bridges drafts. Jack Caglione was in the top 100, Brian Bridges draft. Like we could probably potentially see, I think Zion Rose will be borderline top 100, but again, another guy who could potentially enter the top 100. So Brian Bridges has been doing a very good job. The farm system, I think we got to stop with the narrative that the farm system has kind of completely tanked. That's all.
I agree, and I think it's just and it's hard because let's be honest, Royals move guys. The guys who are ready, they move quick.
Yes.
They don't sit like they could have easily sat on a Jack Caglione or a Carter Jensen, bump their system rankings for like a little bit, and then then everybody be like, oh, look at their system, best in baseball. They don't do that. So I think like the Dodgers do that because the Dodgers have a bunch of free agents on their team, so their system looks awesome because those guys have nowhere to go. The Royals move their guys up. I agree. I mean, I think right now Bridges, he's only had 2 years he's been in charge of the draft. So I think right now, like, you really got to be happy. Well, now I guess this year was his 3rd year, but he's had 3 years. It's been pretty good.
Yeah. And we're going to go to another Brian Bridges guy here for our 3rd pitcher that we both picked, Michael Lombardi, out of Tulane in A-ball at 22 years old. He's got a 12.63 K9, 72 innings pitched. Absolutely dominating in terms of ERA. This is a guy who was a two-way player at Tulane and has really started to focus on pitching, and he's already coming out with his dominance.
Yeah. The one thing that's like interesting about Lombardi is like you can see the rawness on the mound still. I mean, it's just like you could just tell he needs polish, and I think that's why he's staying in Columbia as long as he has. Because you're right, he was a two-way player at Tulane. He was not a pitcher-only guy. I think he's still working on things, which is why I like the walk rate's a little high. But I mean, the guy's got some of the best strikeout stuff in the organization. I mean, he's one of 7 players who's hit 100 career strikeouts in Columbia. That's like one of 7 players. I know it's like minor leagues, dubious honor, but that's a pretty good showing of what he can do. Like there's not a lot of, I think maybe there's only like 1 or 2 pitchers that strike out guys better in the organization than Lombardi.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. Wrapping up our rotations, you have Ryan McDonough, Cameron Millar. I have Justin Lampkin and Darwin Rodriguez. I talked briefly here about McDonough because I love this kid.
I did too. He had a bad outing tonight. Like he gave up like 5 runs in the first 3 innings. Because I picked him. And I was like, oh gosh. Yeah. But I mean, I think the fastball is still, it could use some more velocity, but he's got a really good breaker. His command is really good. We have a guy on Royals Keep who lives in Columbia and watches games, and he was really high on McDonough. Just says, hey, this guy's really polished. He attacks guys. He has a great K to walk ratio, great strikeout rate. And again, an undrafted guy out of Canada. We've seen the Royals kind of really, really get these Canadian guys that really don't have a lot of prospect height. So he's been really good. And Cameron Millar, he's only had 7 appearances. This was an overslot guy in the 2025 draft. He hasn't pitched a whole ton, but the numbers are great. 39.1 K percentage, 34.4 K to walk. I mean, it's like, I think he's just a guy who's going to take slow, but it wouldn't surprise me if he's like one of those guys that really breaks out next year.
Yeah, I love those picks. I was going to pick Madonna, but then I went Justin Lampkin because, again, the injury sucks. He's on the 60-day down in the minor leagues, but 39.2 innings, had a 12.03 12.03 K to 9 rate. He's just been absolutely dominant when he was healthy. 2.04 ERA, 53 strikeouts in 39 2/3 innings. We've talked about it. He's like a Chris Bubich 2.0. Again, you want to see him get healthy. He's 22 years old already. Split time between high A and double A. So hopefully, again, the recovery timeline's okay for him, and he's back kind of on the mound soon. But I had to give some Justin Lampkin love. And then Darwin Rodriguez was another guy that I just don't think gets enough attention. This is a kid who's posted a 3.61 ERA and 15 starts down in Columbia. And the Columbia pitching staff has been absolutely incredible. 85 strikeouts and 89 2/3 innings. And we didn't even get to Jose Gutierrez, who's on the Columbia pitching staff, who's got a 3.27 ERA. So good for Columbia. They're all dominating down there.
Yeah, I mean, Columbia is the only team right now. Well, is the only full season affiliate with a winning record. Quad Cities did, and then they hit a bad slump. But it's Columbia has been a very good team, and the pitching has been really good. And I like your Lampkin pick. I wanted to put him. I just thought the injury. I just wanted to highlight other guys because of the injury. But Lampkin's, once he returns, I mean, I think he's going to move really quickly. I mean, he's already got a promotion to double A. I mean, I think it's totally plausible if he's healthy that 2027 might be on track for him.
Yeah, I agree. We're going to wrap up with the bullpen. We both have the same guy again here, LP Langevin. Absolutely dominant.
Yeah, we are not biased. We don't just pick guys that we've interviewed.
Yeah.
It's if anything, we've helped. I think we've helped spark them to be
Royals
really good.
pipeline run.
Yeah, Royals pipeline, blessing or whatever you want to call it. But no, he's been amazing. 44.4% K rate. The walks were high, but he's kind of been able to manage that. And that was one thing we talked about. I mean, you talked with Bridges. Bridges was like stuff wise, he's like, I would promote him now to the majors. He loved Langevin that much. And, obviously they're not going to do that, but that just kind of shows and the one thing about Langevin too is we see his approach, he just has that closer mentality that you can really see him being successful. And that's how he's really finding success in Quad Cities. He just attacks guys. He's like, I'm just going to blow you away. And I love that about him. And I think that's going to really help him as he moves up. I'm hoping to see him in AA. I really want to see him make a push for the 2028 bullpen in some case.
Yeah,
Or
it's two big mix. It's a fastball, slider, or curveball. I can't remember which one it is, but again, fastball's got this insane IVB. It's a ton of ride up in the zone, and he's just like, "Here, go for it, try to hit it," and it works.
It works.
The last guys we have here, you had Oscar Rayo, and I had Coleman Picard. Briefly talk about Rayo here.
Yeah, I had a tough one on this one for the bullpen. I mean, I guess I could have gone with Camden Edge, who's been really good. That's probably on my bad, but Rayo's been pretty good in AA. He's been good in AAA. I know he had 2.03 ERA. I mean, the deeper metrics weren't as good, but he's kind of the opposite. He's kind of more of a control guy, and he just really paints his spots. I mean, he's and I think sometimes there's a value to that. If he ever adds velocity, I think he could be an Angel Zerpet type, but the velocity just isn't there. But I think there's a value to a guy that doesn't walk guys, right? And the Royals have really struggled this year in the bullpen with guys with walks. So I mean, can Rayo kind of be a guy that just comes in and doesn't walk guys? I don't know, but it's I think he deserves some credit for a strong 2026 so far.
Yeah, guy I went with is the 2023 draft pick, Coleman Picard. He's in Columbia now. I think he's fluctuated between Quad Cities, Complex League, mostly pitched in Columbia. 2.41 ERA, 37 Ks and 37 in the third innings, 1.04 whip. Kid out of Bryant that they took in the 6th round. Again, likely a money saver there in the 2023 draft, but he's been really good. But it probably is he's 24 years old in low way, so you're going to want to see him get up quite a bit. But I think he's dealt with some injuries. Yeah, he's had coming back from the 60-day injured list. He went on it in November 2025. So he's been dealing with some injuries, and it's part of the reason he's still in the lower levels.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, and so for some guys, people say, oh, he's 24, but it's there's a lot that goes in there. And honestly, with relievers, who gives a crap about their age? They're gonna move fast. They're either gonna show it or they're not, right? So it's if he debuts at 26 and 27, who cares? He's a reliever. It's not like he's going to be oh, we need to have 10 years of him being an effective reliever. It's usually probably just 2 or 3 years, honestly.
Yeah. I love it. That is our midseason awards. You can check them out when you go back through this episode. We're going to probably come back to you post MLB trade deadline to kind of break down any of the new prospects or any new players that come into the Royals organization. Excited to see kind of what happens here. It's always an exciting time of the year. So make sure you're staying tuned. Make sure you're checking out on everything at KC Sports Network. And until next time, we'll see you.
See you.